Hello. In this example, we're going to be solving another radical equation. The radical equation is the cube root of 5x squared minus 12x plus 6 minus the cube root of x equals 0. And again, to solve this radical equation, I need to get this radical to the other side. So I'm going to add the cube root of x to both sides. And that's going to give me the cube root of 5x squared minus 12x plus 6. And that's going to be equal to the cube root of x. Now that we have the radicals by themselves, we're going to simply cube both sides. So the cube root of something cubed is that something, and that's going to give me 5x squared minus 12x plus 6, and that's going to be equal to, right here, that gives me x. Now to solve this, I need to subtract x from both sides, and that's going to give me 5x squared minus 12x, excuse me, not 12x, it'll be 13x, plus 6, and that's equal to 0. Fantastic. Okay, now, this is a quadratic equation, and you can solve it any way that you want. We can use the quadratic formula, we can use completing the square, we can use factoring. And honestly, factoring is almost always easiest. However, this time we have to make sure that we have to get rid of the 5, or we actually have to use bottoms up, because there's a 5 out here. And again, with bottoms up, whatever's out here gets multiplied to this last term here. So that's going to give me x squared minus 13x plus 30. And this is what I'm actually going to be factoring. And its factorization has an x here, an x here. A plus means the same sign. A minus tells you what sign they are. The question becomes, what multiplies to 30 and adds to 13? Well, if you write down the factors of 30, you'll see that 10 and 3 multiply to 30 and add to 13. So I'm going to put a 10 here and a 3 here. Now, because this last term was multiplied by 6, I'm going to divide both of these by, the last term is multiplied by 5. I'm going to multiply both of these by 5. And then I'm going to simplify. That gives me x minus 2 times x minus 3/5. And anytime you have a denominator, it goes up in front of the variable within that factor. And that's going to give you x minus 2 times 5x minus 3. And again, still equal to 0. Now you can always check to make sure that this is the factorization of the original problem that you're trying to factor by foiling this out in your head. Well, x times 5x gives you 5x squared. Fantastic. Negative 2 times negative 3 is positive 6. Fantastic. But it's this middle term that always gives us trouble. So kind of looking at this, negative 2 times 5x is negative 10x, and x times negative 3 is negative 3x. So we have the negative 10x minus 3x, and that's going to give us this negative 13x. And this is just a quick way of checking to see whether or not you factored correctly. Now the next step is simply to use the zero factor property by saying x minus 2 equals 0, or 5x minus 3 equals 0. So you can add 2 to both sides, making this x equals 2, and then add 3 to both sides, making this 5x equals 3. Then divide by 5. So x is equal to 3/5, and over here x is equal to 2. So I have two separate solutions, 2 and 3/5, which means I need to check these. We're going to start out with the 2. So the cube root of 5 times 2 squared minus 12 times 2 plus 6 is the first radical. Make sure the radical symbol goes across all of them, please. Minus the cube root of 2, and we're hoping that that's 0. And then you just simplify. 2 squared is 4. 4 times 5 is 20. So this is the cube root of 20 minus 12 times 2 is 24 plus 6 minus the cube root of 2. Notice that the cube root of 2 cannot be simplified. So 20 plus 6 is 26, minus 24 is 2. That gives me the cube root of 2 minus the cube root of 2. Oh, look, they're the same thing, subtracted, so 0 equals 0. Fantastic. That means that, in fact, 2 is a solution. Now let's look at 3/5. So that's going to give me the cube root of 5 times 3/5 squared minus 12 times 5 plus 6. And then minus the cube root of, 12 times 3/5 plus 6 minus the cube root of 3/5. And again, we're hoping that that's 0. Now, notice that the cube root of 3/5, there's nothing we can do with that because the cube root of 3 is, well, you can't simplify it. The cube root of 5 you cannot simplify. We could rationalize the denominator, but we're not going to need to. Let's come over here though. 3/5 squared is 9/25 times 5 is 9/5. 3 squared is 9. 5 squared is 25 times 5. Notice that we can write 5 as 5/1. That's a 1. That's a 5. That gives you 9/5. So this is the cube root of 9/5 minus, now notice that 12 and 5 share no common factor, so just multiply straight across. 12 times 3 is 36. Leave your denominator as 5 because it's 12/1. And then plus 6. But because we have an over 5 here, let's make this over 5 as well. So 6/1 as something over 5 is just 30/5. And then again, minus the cube root of 3/5. And that's equal to 0. Now then, because all of these have a denominator of 5, we have 9 minus 36. That gives you negative 27 plus 30 is positive 3. So that's the cube root of 3 over, keep your denominator of 5, minus the cube root of 3/5. Oh, look, fantastic. Whatever this is minus whatever this is, they're the same thing. Subtracted gives you 0. So 0 equals 0. Fantastic. We now have two separate solutions. So the solution set is going to be 3/5 and 2. Alrighty. Well, I will see you all in the next video.